Welcome. My name is Sophia. I'm 25 years old and I'm coming to you from New York City, where I grew up, with the first episode of a knitting podcast. So thank you for being here, and hopefully I'll make more episodes and see you again soon. I want to start by saying I'm sorry for what I'm sure is pretty bad video quality. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's really loud here because it's New York, so there might be trucks, sirens, screaming, whatever. My desk chair is squeaky as anything. So I'm sorry for that too. I have to get a new chair sorted out, I guess, if I want to do this. And you are currently perched on a very precarious stack of books on my bed. So this is all very makeshift, but I hope it's okay. Yeah, so it's nice to meet you. I've been knitting since I was about 5. I learned in an after-school knitting class, and I kind of knit on and off occasionally in the following years, but then at the end of college I took a class on Andean pre-Columbian textiles. I studied art history and archaeology, and it was so hands-on. We learned how to weave, and we went to Rhinebeck Fiber Festival in upstate New York, which was so great. Or actually, I think it's called New York Sheep and Wool Festival, and it's happening again in October, so hit me up if you're going. Yeah, and it was wonderful, and I just loved everything about the wool and everything you can do with it and learning about it, and I got back into knitting, and I had to watch some YouTube videos to remind myself which way was knitting and which way was purling. But since then, which was probably like 5 years ago now, gosh, I've been knitting incessantly, and I'm so happy about that. I also sew. I'm a trained bespoke tailor, and I embroider a bit. I'm self-taught at that. I, weave a bit, spin a bit, anything fiber adjacent I want to do. Except I don't really know how to crochet, but that's a problem for another day. I'll start with what I'm wearing. I knitted this past winter, I think. This is the Antiquity Blouse by Fabel Knitwear, Helena Arnason, who is just the most wonderful knitwear designer. She's a former costume designer. She's Norwegian. This is her amazing book. I want to knit every single thing in this book, but it's in Norwegian, so, takes some Google Translate. Yeah, and she has a lot of lace patterns and historically inspired or retro-inspired patterns. This blouse was inspired by Edwardian blouses, which in dark green is hard to believe, but it has this gorgeous lace panel in the front with these baubles, this sort of floral pattern. I changed the collar a bit, and I stitched it down because the way it was in the pattern just didn't work, I guess, with the yarn I was using and the way I knit, but otherwise it's pretty much as it was. I used the Fiber Fox merino singles to knit this. The main body color is called the Fellowship, and I can't remember the name of the colorway I used for the sleeves, and I tried to look it up and I couldn't find it on their website. But even though this is a superwash wool and I don't usually go for those, this is a really great yarn to knit with. Has really good stitch definition for lace. Doesn't feel too superwashy, if you know what I mean. Very fine, very soft, so I recommend their yarns. They have a lot of really beautiful colorways, They're a UK-based company out of Lincolnshire, I think. So yeah. Right now I am test knitting a pattern also for Fabel Knitwear called the Academia Dress. And this is my first test knit. I'm super excited. I had asked to test knit a couple other times for different designers and I never, heard back. I think I have a pretty common size maybe, and I don't have that much of a social media presence, so I was really, really happy to get to knit this because it is gorgeous. It's going to be a longish dress. I've knit the sleeves already and I'm just going down the body. It's got like a little collar that you close, that you add buttons to ultimately. It's quite fitted. It has these really excellent sleeve puffs that are like, Professor McGonagall vibes. They're so great. I think also the yarn I'm using is a lot stiffer than the yarn that she used, so the puffs are more exaggerated, but I'm into that. And this pattern has been so much fun to make, and I'm so excited for this dress. I mean, I have never used a knitting pattern before that had so much attention to fit and customization, and that is just so great, not only to learn and to have the final product, but to sort of understand a bit more about the shaping of knitwear. Yeah, and everybody's shaped differently, so even though yarn is stretchy, different people need different things, and I think it's so great that, you can really customize something to yourself, because that's part of the reason we make things, right? So when this pattern comes out, which I think is going to be later in the year because the test knit is due in October, I totally recommend you try it out. And it's not even that much knitting because it's done on 4.5mm needles, and that goes relatively quickly, and it's mostly stockinette with customizations for shape. I will not say much more, except I will tell you what yarn I'm using because I should do that. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation here, so any Scandinavians, please forgive me or turn the sound off, or please correct me. I don't know. I'm using Hillesvåg Sølje, which is a Norwegian health wool yarn. It says it's 4-ply or fingering, but this is quite lightweight for fingering weight yarn. I would say it's like borderline lace weight. So I'm using 2 strands because that's how I got gauged, but it's such a puffy, rustic, squidgy yarn that it really poofs up. I mean, I haven't washed and blocked yet, obviously, because I'm not done, but it's already really like filling in the knitting loops, the stitches. It might be a bit rough for someone who's sensitive, but I love the sheepy, traditional woolly feel of it. And the color is marineblå. Sorry again, marine blue, I think. And it's a lovely deep blue with like a hint of like, slightest hint of like tealishness. And I really like it. I love this yarn. I'd heard about it a bunch of times, and I tracked it down in a shop in London when I was still living in the UK, and I bought 5 skeins, which was not enough since I'm knitting with 2 strands, so I have to find out how I can order it in the States. I think it's sold in a few shops in Canada, so hopefully you can get it anywhere. But yeah, love this wool. I like fine wools. I don't often knit with very chunky wool. I have before, but I usually prefer the look of fine wools, like fingering weights. I like lace knitting, I like cabling, I like patterny things, and I find those patterns are usually fingering weight, maybe DK, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see, maybe more chunky wools will come out in the winter. Yeah, so that is the academia dress test knit. Oh, and I'm using my Addy interchangeable needle set. I always knit on a really long cable so that I can scrunch up the yarn to knit more quickly, and also so that I can try it on whenever, because I never get gauge. My gauge is always too loose. I think I've got gauge in a swatch, and then I start knitting and everything's wrong and I have to start over. That's fine, that's just part of knitting for me. So I have to be able to try things on over and over and over again so I can go back and fix problems before they disappear many rows up and I don't have the will to do it anymore. Yeah, and this needle set is great. It's a German set, and they have this click system that means they don't come off easily. They're metal needles, so they're kind of slippery, but that's okay because I usually work with pretty rustic, I guess, yarns that hold even if the needle slips off. Yep. So it's a good set. Yeah, and another work in progress that I have at the minute is in this bag. It's the basic bra by NakedKnit, which everybody's making right now. I tried and I failed miserably. The sizing is so wrong. I knit one cup and it's just way too big, and just there are many things wrong with it, so I don't know. I need to really take a look at this and try it on and figure out what I did wrong and what I can do better next time, because the sizing is relatively customizable. There are different cup and rib sizes essentially. Yeah, so I need to reevaluate and go back and maybe see if my gauge was wrong, which it probably was. Because I really like this pattern. I really want to have the finished object. It looks so nice on everybody else who's made one, and I was so excited. I don't buy a lot of knitting patterns, and I bought this pattern a long time ago, months and months ago, and I've been waiting to knit it, and then I did, and it's been sitting for a couple weeks now. I even bought the elastic for the band, which is not something I ever do. And it's knit in one strand of Knitting for Olive merino in soft blue, and one strand of Knitting for Olive silk mohair in pearly gray, and I think it makes a really nice soft fuzzy fabric. It's not too see-through. The pattern calls for cashmere, but I didn't have cashmere in the right weight, and I had this and I thought it would look good, and it does. It's a really nice fabric. I'd never used Knitting for Olive, but now I understand why it's so popular. It's just really, well, like comfortable against the skin and fluffy, and their colorways are lovely. And I am using my Lykke 2.5mm circulars, which are great with soft yarns because they're wood, so they have like a little bit more friction than metal needles. But these have broken on me before, and I've had to get new ones, which I guess is natural for a 2.5mm thick bit of wood that you're traveling with and doing stuff with. But anyway, I really don't want this to become an unfinished object, so hopefully by telling the internet about it, I'll be held accountable to actually do something. We will see. But yeah, I also think I got the pattern months ago, and I think they might have changed it since, because I've heard people talk about it and say things about the fit and the design that don't apply to my pattern. So it's possible that there is something kind of hard to understand going on. I don't know, I just need to start over with that, unfortunately. Yeah, and then I have kind of a work in project, kind of a finished object. It just needs the ends weaving in and blocking. This is the Fabel Knitwear, again, Poet Ruffle blouse, again from this lovely book, Volume 1, Fabel Knitwear. Her name is Helena Arneson. And this pattern took so much knitting. I've been working on it since March. I mean, I used a really fine yarn and 2.5mm needles. But it's got this lovely, where's the front? Let's see. Here's the front. It's got this lovely big ruffle with a nice little kind of lacy pattern at the edge. And it's got kind of poofy sleeves, so it took like a little while, and it took a lot of yarn. But I can't wait for it to be cold enough that I can wear this. I feel like I really want to wear this ice skating. You know, that feels like kind of the vibe, like a pretty skirt and this sweater, and maybe it'll snow, and that just seems really, I don't know, like it matches this design to me somehow. I'm looking forward to that in the winter. Yeah. And this was knit in Whistlebare Farms Yeavering Bell 4-ply, which is a very, very special yarn. It's 80% Angora, so mohair, and 20% Wensleydale sheep. And it's so soft and fuzzy and fluffy, and the fibers get everywhere, so if I'm sniffling a lot, it's because my nose is full of fibers, because this is just shedding left and right. But it's so gorgeous and soft and lovely and white, and yeah, so it's a great yarn to work with. It's quite, I don't know, hard or stiff is the word. So it does really need blocking, but once blocked, it blocks really well, because I tested on this sleeve to make sure that it would actually work and not just curl up, and yeah, it blocked really flat, and I did this ages ago before I knit most of the rest of the sweater, so it holds as well. And I actually got this yarn, well, in March, I think, or April, after I went to the Unravel Festival in the UK. I volunteered for a week on Whistlebare Farms, where these goats live, that gave us their mohair, with Alice, who runs the farm with her family, and helped with the shearing, which was so great, and I learned so much, and she knows so much about goats, and they just love the animals to pieces. And they produce their own yarns, they have them spun, and then she dyes them. This is the undyed color because, I don't know, I'm boring. I always gravitate towards like white things, white yarns. But she has gorgeous colorways and different weights, and she also just has sheep wool. But I really recommend that you check out their website, or if you're ever in Northumberland on the border of England and Scotland, I recommend that you go by there. She has a little shop. It has opening hours, but also I think if she's around, she'll just open it and you can have a look and squidge everything and see all the lovely patterns that you can knit with the yarns that come with the yarn if you buy it. Yes, so really lovely yarn, and you can see the goats where your yarn comes from, which is a pretty special thing, I think. Yeah, so I just have to weave in the ends and block that, but that's been waiting for a couple weeks, at least. I'm not really good at knitting multiple projects at a time. I tend to get sort of frustrated when I'm switching around because I don't really see as much progress, and I'm a pretty impatient person, which hopefully the knitting's helping with, so I usually just knit one thing at a time And if I start something else, then I put the first project down until the something else is done. I've tried knitting many things at once, and I cannot do it. So another thing that I recently finished, my only summer top, because I've tried to knit them, or I've wanted to knit them, but I just don't like summer. And I'm knitting for the winter, you know, just waiting for the sun to go away again and the heat to pass. Hope some of you can relate and you don't just think I'm crazy, but this is my one summer top that I've made in a cotton yarn. This is the Witre Design Collett Tee. I was looking for the most basic t-shirt pattern that I could find to knit, and when I say basic, I guess I mean kind of most similar to like a sewn white t-shirt. So I wanted one that had kind of structured shoulders and a little bit of shaping, but nothing too fancy going on. And this was what I came up with. It has a nice relatively fitted collar, some short row shaping, and what I really like about it is this shoulder construction. So it's a raglan construction, but you knit the shoulders to the length that you need before you split for the sleeves, which is great for me because I have broad shoulders, broad pointy shoulders, and pretty skinny arms, so like I don't want to split too quickly, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and I pretty much just followed this pattern how it's supposed to be. I mean, I made alterations to fit me a bit better, but nothing significant. It was a little challenging to understand how to simultaneously do the shoulders and the short row shaping. I think at that point, short row shaping I was relatively new to. I knit this a couple months ago, and I hadn't really done it before, or very little. And I wasn't entirely clear on how to do it, maybe, or something, but I definitely had to unravel the shoulders, back neck portion a couple times before I figured out how I was supposed to be doing it. But I'm really glad with the result. It was pretty fun to knit. I wear it all the time. I think it looks good. It's like, I don't know, it's like a t-shirt, but it's kind of got a nice texture. So I feel like it's a bit more formal than just a t-shirt. I can wear it with a skirt. It feels a bit more like dressed up than a regular t-shirt to me. And I knit it in a Lana Grossa cotton yarn, and I have no idea what that cotton yarn was called. I can't find the yarn band. And I bought it while I was on a research trip in Budapest, so I can't even find the shop where I got it. Really, they don't have a website. But it was just the most basic white cotton yarn I could find. Looking at it, I guess I'd say it was a thick fingering weight. And it's just white. I don't love knitting with cotton. I'm a wool girl all the way. I'm not even that crazy about mohair as compared to sheep wool, but I'm glad that I have this, my one summer top. Yeah. Oh, and one little alteration I made that I'm quite proud of was that I knitted a little tag in the back, just like picked up stitches here and then knitted a couple of rows down. Because it's hard to tell the front from the back, and when there's short row shaping, there is actually a front and a back, so I'm glad I did that. And I want to do it in future on my other sweaters, some of which you'll see over time if I make more of these weird videos. Yeah, this is the Collett Tee by Witre Design, and like everything else, I will write down that name in the description. And then there is one more recently finished object that I do not have with me, because it was a gift for someone and I've already given it away. But I will see if I can video voodoo it into the picture somehow. I'm not great with computers, so let's see if I can do it. It was a gansey, also called Guernsey, that I picked up from the book, is it Gladys, by Gladys Thompson, Patterns for Guernseys, Jerseys, and Arans. And a Guernsey gansey is basically like your traditional British fisherman sweater, with some cabling, and usually the cabling things, they stop about here on the sleeves and on the body, and it's just straight stocking net down here, and maybe some initials knit in, theoretically, so it can be like reknit if it gets damaged, because it was traditionally kind of workwear for fishermen. And I knit a men's one. The book has pattern charts for the patterns themselves, like the cabling and everything, but it doesn't have really much information on sizing or construction, so you kind of have to know how a sweater is put together before you make one, because you have to do a lot on your own. And there aren't multiple sizes. She's just like, get gauge, which is this, and then cast on these number of stitches. So I didn't do that number of stitches either. So yeah, a lot of independent sort of thinking required to make from that book, but it has loads of patterns. They're associated with places traditionally, which some have said was to identify fishermen who washed up on shore, and find out where they were from, but others say it was to prevent theft. Same with the initials, so nobody could steal this valuable item of clothing that took someone months and months to make for you, because they're usually knitted traditionally on 2mm wide, 40 centimeter long, double-pointed needles, which are a lot to work with. I use them, and you can't put them in a bag because they're so thin. They just puncture the bag and slide away, and then they're gone forever, and you have to order a whole new set. You can also make them on a circular needle, but I didn't because I don't know. I can show you and tell you much more about that soon, because I intend to cast one on for myself. I used, sorry for the squeaky chair, Frangipani 5-ply yarn, which is traditional yarn kind of intended for this purpose, made in Cornwall in the UK, 100% sheepy. I guess it's like fingering weight. But yeah, 5-ply, meaning it is 5 strands of spun yarn twisted together in the opposite direction from the spinning. It's quite springy because pretty tightly plied. It's not too fuzzy. It has a really, really, really good stitch definition, which is great for the cabling and the seed stitch and the moss stitch and all the things that are essential to gansey making and patterning. And this is in the color Falmouth Navy, and this is what I have left. I bought 1,000 grams, and this is the rest of a 500-gram cone. 300 grams, I guess. Yeah. Knitting from cones is great. Don't have to ball anything up. Don't have to join things. So yeah, that is my gansey knitting. I'm sorry I don't have it to show you. I wish I'd recorded this a couple weeks ago when I had it, but I didn't. So that's life, baby. That's all the knitting that I think I can call recently finished, as in within the last 4 months, within summer. Yeah, but I do have some embroidery that I thought I could show you because it's related, and maybe if I show people on the internet, I'll have to finish. I'll actually work on it. Well, this is I use this for sewing and knitting stuff. Yeah, so I have 2 things. This is the first. This was like, it's say my first like real embroidery project that wasn't just like a label for a dress or like a little bit of decoration. This was my first like embroidery project of scale. And it is cut work embroidery and white work also, because it's white on white. Couldn't tell, white is one of my colors. I designed the pattern myself, and I've done all of the flowers, and I'm just doing the edging on the bottom now. And it's gonna be trim for something. Maybe a dress. Maybe my hair. I don't know. Probably not that. I don't know. If anyone has any ideas, I'm open to them. Maybe like a collar. I'm not gonna think about that now. Yeah. Cut work embroidery for a little historical context if anyone's interested. I studied art history. It was the predecessor to lace, basically. So before bobbin and needle lace, which are the laces you think of when you think of like lace fabric, in like the 15th century, and before there was cut work embroidery, where embroiderers, makers would cut into woven fabric and then stitch the edges shut, basically, like I've done here, or pull threads, and yeah, different ways of doing it, but that's kind of the gist of the thing. And this flower is supposed to be an Edelweiss, which are the alpine flowers are really associated with Austria, Switzerland, Bavaria, and southern Germany. And they famously grow in really dangerous places in the Alps, and it was a great mark of love for someone to go and take one of these flowers because it was so dangerous to get them. And I like them very much. I'm half German. I was raised speaking German. I don't know, I'm a citizen of Germany. It's my second home, kind of, and I don't know, this sort of made me feel connected to that place when I'm not there. The other flowers are just flowers. I don't know, I just kind of sketched this up and made it because I thought it would look nice, and I like it, but I have to finish it and then find a purpose for it. And the second thing here is an apron, because I'm so messy and I'm always doing projects and I cook a lot and I just get stuff all over my nice clothes, and I don't want to do that anymore. Although hand embroidering something that you intend to get dirty is maybe not the move, but I've done it now. This is like a vine pattern. I was gonna put a vine up either side and then flowers. Haven't made too much progress there, so there isn't that much to show, but I have a little test swatch where I made the design that I can show you. These flowers, I guess I was kind of going for something autumnal, sort of fiber. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that I keep working on these. I just like knitting. I just keep knitting all the time. It takes me like this much more effort to do embroidery, which is like sometimes I just don't do it. But I'm hoping that I'll keep myself accountable now that I've shown you, if anybody's watching this. Yeah, so those are kind of my running projects. I mean, I have some sewing going, but I don't really want to, I don't know, I don't feel like that's interesting for me to talk about. And I kind of want to keep this to a knitting podcast. Yeah, so I guess it's barely been half an hour, so I will sit and knit with you guys for just a little bit. And I can tell you a bit more about myself if you're interested. Grab a drink if you don't have one. I've got some iced coffee. I'm melting actually in this. It's so hot. I didn't really have any knitted summer tops. That white t-shirt is kind of worn. Needs a wash. So I wore this and it's hot. I don't like hot. yeah. Where's my knitting? It's right here. Whoop. Yeah, by the way, this is my needle kit. I feel like not a lot of people have these. Everyone has other brands, but I really like these. It goes from 3.5 millimeters, US 4, up to chunkier than I ever use, which is 8 millimeters or US 11. But yeah, I like them quite a lot. These were a gift because needle kit's expensive, but I'm so glad I have it. I use these for most things except for my tiny projects, which I don't use them for because I knit a lot of stuff on like 2, 2.5, 3 millimeter needles. Cause I don't know, I like being sad. No, I don't know, I just really like fine knitting. I like patterns, which I think are often done on smaller needle sizes, and like I said, my gauge is always really loose, so I'm always going down needle sizes whenever I follow a pattern. Yeah, this is 4.5 millimeter needles. I'm not sure if I said so. For me, this is going like speeding by, although I had to redo one sleeve because I was accidentally using 3.5 millimeters. I was like, why is it so tight when I have the same number of stitches as the other sleeve? And then I realized, and I was like, oh, because I have to start over, I guess. Which is nothing new for me, but gets a bit old re-knitting stuff, especially sleeves, because you already, you know, when you're knitting two, you're already kind of sick of it, and a lot of the time it's just stockinette with a couple of decreases or increases, and you're just like, can this end? But now I'm on the body. I'm happy about that. I knit continental. Don't really know any other way to knit. I've always knit this way. It makes sense to me and it's fastest, and I could use some purling technique. I've tried to make purling less painful for me because it's hard for me to pick the yarn when I purl. It always just kind of like slips away from me when I try and quickly pick it the way I do when I knit, but I don't know, not that many things that I make require purling anyway, because most stuff I knit is in the round. Yeah, so, and not purl facing, because I look at those patterns and I'm like, nah, not touching this. Yeah, so a couple more details about me if anyone has made it this far, if anyone's interested. I, like I said, grew up in New York. I've always been interested in making things and how things are made. I studied art history in college and archaeology, and I just did my master's in art history and medieval art, basically, and techniques and making, which I loved. Right now, I am working part-time in a yarn shop. I'm so excited. I'm just about to start. I've only been back in New York for a week. I just moved back here from England, and I lived in England for 3 years. That's where I did my master's, and that's where I did tailoring. It's the country for it. Loved the climate there. I'm not being sarcastic. This is a lot of sun for me right now. Yeah. I'm umming a lot. I guess I have to work on that. How do people do these videos and not through the whole thing? Production value. Low. Yeah, so there we go again. That's a bit about me. I like anything fibery. I need to get better at spinning, but that's a whole thing. I need to get proper spindle, because I don't want to have to do it on a pencil, because it's hard enough as it is. I've tried it before, I've done it a bit before, and I'd like to get sort of fluent at spinning. yeah, I like reading too, and I have this great book stand that was made for me by a friend who's a blacksmith, and it's the most amazing thing that I own. Maybe I'll show you more another day if anyone's watching this and cares, but it's amazing, it's gorgeous, and I can put different books in it, it's adjustable, and then I can read and knit at the same time, which is so great, because there's only so many times that you can watch Gilmore Girls, you know. Yeah. I feel like my earrings are just like flapping everywhere around. It's weird to talk about yourself without anyone asking questions. Yeah, I have a bunch of knitting books behind me, so I use those. I have the Fabel Knitwear book. I have a Vogue Knitting Stitch Dictionary, which is so great. It's full of so many beautiful patterns, and I intend to, at some point, with a bunch of lace yarn that I have lying around, knit a lace, maybe a blanket or something, with the patterns in there, because they're just gorgeous. And I've got lace yarn lying around in my stash. So yeah, recommend you go to your bookstore and peruse the Vogue knitting book if you get the chance. Yeah, I mostly knit sweaters, but sometimes I also knit socks. And I have some sock wool that I've really been meaning to use, so maybe soon that'll come up. That's about all there is for today, and I feel like it's getting even noisier outside, and I'm really hot in this, so I think I am going to end this video and try on this dress to see if it's time to do some decreases. And if you've made it this far, thank you. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I hope you got something, anything out of it, you know, 40 minutes of time spent. And if anybody watches this, then I'll make another and hope to see you again soon. Have a really wonderful day or night wherever you are, whoever you are. Happy knitting, happy textiling, fibering. It was really nice to meet any of you who are here. Feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. I have a knitting Instagram. It's not really used much. I will drop a picture of the Guernsey that I was talking about in there, especially if I can't get one in the video, because I have to find out how to do that. It's at Warped Wool World, and I will put that in the description. Yeah. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day, and goodbye.